wanted Angie Samota dead. An autopsy determined she'd also been sexually assaulted just before she was stabbed to death. Her friend Sheila.
I find out she had been raped, and I can't think of anything else. It was overwhelming, emotionally.
It was hard for Angie's friends to hear, but the rape did help law enforcement because they now had the perpetrator's DNA profile. But back in the mid-'80s, that wasn't the help it would be today.
Back in 1984, they could at least do a type of blood testing where they can determine whether or not an individual is a secretor or a non-secretor, basically narrow it down to 20% of the population.
Roughly 80% of Americans are secretors, meaning their bodily fluids contain markers for blood type. The other 20%, known as non-secretors, don't have those markers.
The killer was a non-secretor.
Correct.
And that meant it couldn't be Lance, the ex-boyfriend. Angie's friends say she told them Lance had threatened her with a knife. Blood tests revealed Lance was a secretor. In addition, Lance had an alibi, putting him 370 miles away on the night of the murder.
He was staying with his parents in Amarillo, working at the local gym there, and so they were satisfied that he was not in town when this took place.
So he was eliminated based on that.
And what about Ben, Angie's oddly unemotional boyfriend, who officers thought acted strangely the night of the murder?
Did police check to see whether there were scratches or bruises on him?
They checked that. They checked his vehicle. They checked his apartment for any type of blood, bloody clothes, anything like that.
Nothing.
Nothing.
And tests showed Ben was also a secretor. Whoever had raped and killed Angie was not. So cross Ben off the list.
Which leaves Russell.
And he was a non-secretor, and so he could not be eliminated.
His alibi was that he was home in bed, not exactly the strongest.
There was no witness that could confirm where he was after he was dropped off by Angie and Anita.
No one can confirm if he went to bed. No one can confirm where he was after that.
Did he ever move off that story?
Nope.
No.
And Russell said there was nothing romantic about the evening. It was just a night out for 3 young people.
He continued to insist that he didn't have any feelings for Angie, that he didn't perceive that evening as a date, and that he wasn't romantically interested in her.
Correct.
And I get the feeling nobody believed that.
No one did. A lot of things weren't adding up.
Soon, police were questioning Angie's friend Anita about Russell Buchanan.
Was there some specific thing they wanted to know about Russell?
Did I think that he was romantically interested in Angie was the primary question. So I think they sort of were piecing together that we went out that night, that he had some romantic interest in her and maybe she had rebuffed him, and since he lived within walking distance that he had, that he had committed the crime.
What Anita didn't know was that the day after the crime, Russell left town for about 24 hours. It seemed suspicious. When he returned, police paid him a visit. He told them he didn't know anything about Angie's murder, even though it was in the headlines and all over local news. It seemed hard to believe. Police saw both motive and opportunity. And while there was no witness placing Russell at the crime scene, there was also no one to back up his alibi. Angie's friend Sheila met with the lead detective, who laid out for her the police theory.
Russell snapped is the word he used. And then he grabbed a knife, took her into the room, and proceeded to rape her. This is probably the one and only murder he will do, that it was just a passionate moment, and he snapped, and he's going to be back to his old calm self.
Investigators asked Sheila to have dinner with Russell and ask him about his whereabouts the night of the murder. She agreed.
It was so uncomfortable. Here I am sitting across from this man thinking, I'm eating dinner with a murderer. I'm getting into a car with a murderer. This guy murdered my roommate.
But even to Sheila, Russell stuck to his story, just as he had a couple of weeks after the murder when police asked him to take a lie detector test. In fact, Russell was found to be truthful when he was asked questions about Angie's murder. But about 3 months later, Dallas police took a second look.
And they looked at the polygraph again and came to a consensus that he was deceptive on those questions.
That's a big difference from the way his original polygraph results were perceived.
Huge. They had their guy now.
I did not want to believe that it was somebody close to her. It was more than I could handle.
Did you think police were going to charge Russell?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
But they didn't. Russell hired an attorney and stopped talking with police.
They told me that he had lawyered up and they couldn't touch him. They also said that Russell was leaving the country. So, of course, he was leaving the country. He lawyered up. He is hiding. It's done. He's going to get away with murder.
Not so fast. Russell Buchanan is about to tell us a story that will make you reevaluate everything you just heard.
Coming up, Russell answers the tough questions.
The police theory was that you attacked her, you had sex with her, and then you stabbed her to death.
And then, will investigators finally have a way to know if he's telling the truth?
They did have a sample that, in today's technology, could be tested to try and find a DNA standard.
When In the Middle of the Night continues.